Hi YouTube, Darth here. Welcome to a new year in the CTE, and already the DICE developers have been busy with changes. There were a number of patches this week on the CTE and some very big changes already. So let's look at what's new in Battlefield 4. There's been some talk lately about the changes that went into the game for the medic bags with the final stand patch. DICE had mentioned that they were looking at changing these gadgets, and they did just that this past week. The summary of this change is that the big bag is staying pretty much the same. You'll still not be able to heal from the big bag until you're out of suppression for a good number of seconds. However, the little bag is now much better for direct healing in combat. As long as you're not taking damage, you'll pick up and heal from the little bag in as short as 1.5 seconds from the last time you took damage. Suppression no longer affects the healing from the little bag, so it's pretty much going to be the go-to for assault players on the move. So this will create a clear separation between the big bag for groups of teammates and the little bag for assault players who are pushing aggressively. Honestly, in the vast majority of situations, I don't see how this doesn't make the little bag the clear winner. Outside of log jams on Operation Locker, you'll be able to toss first aid packs to individual players pretty readily and expect them to start working right away. For the sake of consistency, DICE has also applied the out-of-combat rules to ammo bags as well. I think the change to ammo makes sense, and I don't think it'll hit the pace of the game quite as hard as the medic bag change. Mostly because players tend to run out of health a lot more often than they do ammo. Unsurprisingly, there was a change to the SRAW this week. While DICE hasn't quite gone back on the nerf to the SRAW from a few weeks ago, they have modified a few key stats. Firstly, they improved the turning rate of the SRAW by about 40% from where it was. Now it has more ability to turn in flight and pull off shots with its now roughly 450 meter range. Though this newer SRAW still has quite a bit less turning power than on live servers. Additionally, the SRAW's field of view was increased so that players have a better ability to spot the missile within the sight while making turns. This is a pretty decent improvement over live and should help to offset the decreases in its other characteristics. Finally, DICE has modified the Lays SRAW and Law so that they are now able to disable helis and will kill jets. I feel that all these changes put together seem pretty fair for the SRAW, but if you feel otherwise, please let me know in the comments below. The jets also saw a buff to their cannons across the board. Firstly, the 25mm cannons were improved so that their new anti-infantry splash damage actually does damage. Before, it had been erroneously set to 0, which would explain why I had such difficulty using it against infantry. Now the only excuse I have is playing on a Dutch server with a high ping and getting sloppy. The 20mm cannons were also buffed against helicopters, which again makes some sense as they didn't quite feel like they were serving their role the last time I was playing around with them a few weeks ago. The 30mm saw something of a nerf as the 25mm and 30mm cannons had their damage values converged against ground a bit more. I noticed this as I seem to be doing more damage to ground targets with the 25mm than I had previously. Though I wonder if all these combined changes simply means that the 25mm is an obvious and clear winner here for primary cannon on jets. Next up, as part of ongoing changes to the aerial game, the mobile anti-aircraft saw a number of changes that could be considered both buffs and nerfs. But overall, it seems like the platform saw a bit of a buff. Firstly, the MAA now has damage fall off, whereas before its bullets did the same damage at all ranges, they now fall off out to 50 meters. The near damage of the MAA has been increased to compensate. The velocity and range of the 20mm cannons on the MAA have been increased to give the vehicle a better chance of hits against aircraft and helicopters flying beyond its normal engagement envelope. Additionally, the 30mm cannons now have a minimum spread, whereas before they could be fired like a laser rifle at infantry if controlled. This should create a distinction between range and power for the two cannon types. Finally, the spread values were changed for the mobile anti-aircraft to discourage sustained sprays from the vehicle by making them more inaccurate. Probably the two most common assault rifles saw some interesting changes this week. I want to get to the changes first before I talk about my opinions on them. But first up, the AEK971 saw its first shot recoil multiplier reduced while its recoil has been increased. The first shot recoil multiplier is reduced from 3 to 2.55. The left recoil was changed from 0.15 to 0.23, and the upward recoil increased from 0.38 to 0.42. Ultimately, I think this is only going to improve the accuracy for players who are attempting to hit a target at mid-range with burst fire, but it's definitely going to punish players who burst longer. Next up, the ACE23 saw its reload time increased and its ammo capacity corrected, which means buffed. The reload times for both the bullet in chamber and empty reload have both increased by 0.2 seconds. This might not seem like a lot, but it mellows the reload times on this gun into the middle of the road mode rather than top tier. But what is very interesting on the ACE23 is that the maximum ammo has increased from 30-31 to 35-36. This means that the ACE23 now has the biggest ammo load of all the assault rifles. I have to say that it does make it a very interesting choice to have a weapon with a standout category like that. Now it's going to seem strange that they buffed the ACE23, but the spread of this weapon was already nearly identical to the ACE21, which does already have a larger ammo capacity. Now the ACE23 is the clear pick for assault players over the ACE21. But it does seem strange to buff a weapon that many already considered overpowered. I think this one's going to leave people scratching their heads, but I'd love to hear your comments below. At the very least, I know a weapon that I personally rarely use because I find it unremarkable has suddenly become a lot more remarkable. As with every update, DICE has had a few other tweaks. Up this week were squad spawn delay in combat was slightly lengthened, railgun damage and splash damage was reduced, there were continued tweaks to Obliteration Competitive, and the persistent wreck bug may actually be fixed. That's it for this week on the CTE. As always, I'd love to hear your comments about the changes below. If you're new around here, check out my channel and please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time, YouTube.